This is Venn Abrams, and today in After Effects we're making Venn diagrams. The only diagram that can show you the intersection of fun and education. We're going to use vector objects, and instead of blending colors, we're actually going to be using the alpha channel to define things so you can put whatever behind them. So fire up After Effects and let's do it. So inside of After Effects, we're going to create a new composition. Let's call the composition Venn, and this is going to be important later on, so remember what we called this. Make the duration whatever, make the size whatever, let's get into it. So the first thing we need is a new solid to serve as our background. Let's make it a light color, just so that, it looks nice. Hit OK. Now everything else is going to be made with the Ellipse Tool. So go up here to the Ellipse Tool, or hit Q, or whatever. Double click on it and it'll create a circle out there. Make sure that the fill here is set to none. OK. And make sure the stroke is set to solid. That's good too. We're going to go with 16 and sort of a darker color. So that's fine. Now in the ellipse, we want to change the ellipse path to be unlinked and just make it 500 by 500. We are going to keyframe it. So here at frame 20, we want it to be at 500 by 500, but at frame 0, we want it to be at 0. So it grows up. And now we also want to keyframe the position a little bit. So just hit P, call up the layers position, and I'm not totally sure where I want it to be just yet. So I'm just going to nudge it over about 30 clicks there. Set a keyframe, go back to the very start, nudge it over a bit more so that it grows and comes in. And you know what, maybe I want these two bunches of keyframes to just one happens and then the other happens. So it takes 20 frames to make it grow and it takes another 20 frames to bring it into the middle. Select all those keyframes, hit F9, go into the graph editor, select the keyframes again, and just drag their handles so that the keyframes appear more interesting in their motion. So this is going to be the lines that define circle A. So this is A lines. And now that means we also need some B lines. So let's duplicate this, call it B lines, and we'll need to change its position. And its ending position, we don't want it to be there, we want it to be kind of like here. So just nudge it 6 places over. And when it starts, I think it would be best if it starts over here, on its own, doing its own thing. And maybe they don't need to be so close together. Maybe that's enough, just enough so we can illustrate the overlap there. So these will form sort of the control of the other parts. And for now, let's just do 2 circles overlapping each other. Let's just give that a go. Let's duplicate those and just set those below everything. And these are going to be the fills. So we're going to make B fill, and we're going to make A fill. These still have keyframes stuck to them, and I'm not too interested in those keyframes, so open them up and delete them. And we're going to create expressions that link the size and position of these things to the size and position of their originals, so the lines. Now for the B fill, we want to make sure that the B fill is looking at the B lines. So call up those keyframes and just pick whip between the B fill size and the B lines size, and the B fill position and the B lines position, and the same thing for A. So we want the A lines size to be controlling the A fill, and same for its position. There we go. So this should be all good. So BBAA, perfect. And now let's just set both of the A's to be a red color and just leave the B's alone, and just set the background to like dark green so we don't confuse it. Everything's linked together, so we have fewer keyframes, and we want to change the A fill to have a fill of some kind, and perhaps that fill should be a red, should have like a 75% saturation, and maybe 100% brightness. That would be fine. And for the B fill, let's give it a solid fill. That's good. And let's give it, I don't know, something like, yeah, that's fine. Something like that. Seems to be doing it for me. I don't really care what the colors are because we're not mixing colors together using blending modes or any of that stuff. We're actually going to be using the alpha channels to define the center area, so we can do things like putting in patterns and making all kinds of wacky things so that when red meets blue, it doesn't have to make purple. It can make anything. It could make a dragon. That's the kind of thing that we're doing. So right now we've got these two things. They interact, but they don't actually have much overlap going on. So let's take the two fills, duplicate the fills, and set them above. Change the bottom of those fills we duplicated to be of the alpha matte of the thing above it, and let's just change its fill to be something distinct and unique, maybe like a green, kind of gross pea soup green. Good. Grab both of those and, you know, maybe change their color to be something distinct, like a yellow, just so we can tell all our layers apart. And then just take all of those layers that are fills and make sure they don't have strokes, because that's really counterintuitive. But at this point, you've created a Venn diagram of two things that overlap each other. And what's more, if you want to edit the way in which they interact with each other, you can just grab the position of these parent layers and just start moving them around crazy town, you know? It doesn't matter really who they are or where they're from. However, things are going to get more complicated as soon as we move into making 3 circles interacting with each other. Let's do that right now. Let's just delete that work that we did so far. That was silly. And stick with, we've got A lines, we have B lines, we have A fills and B fills. Let's make a C fill. So we're going to make C lines, and we are also going to make some C fill. Perfect. And now these C things, let's give them a new layer label color. Let's make those yellow, and let's change their positions. So go up here to the C lines, hit the positions, and make sure that everything is going to be ending in a way that kind of makes sense. Something like this seems to make sense to me. And maybe just move that up a little bit around there. Cool. Just take their end states, copy and paste them to their start states. And what we can do is we can just take them, and I'm just going to nudge them away from each other like this, so they all come together. Yeah, good enough. Grab all those keyframes, just look at the graph editor again, just to make sure that everything's copacetic, and there we go. So we've got 3 outlines that are coming together, and we're going to make sure that the C fill is actually looking at the C lines instead of the B lines, because that's silly. And let's just give the C fill a different fill, just so it's distinct and unique. Let's make it like a yellow, because it's the same color as the layers. Good. And now let's make all of the fills interact with each other. So it's almost exactly the same way as we did it before. We need to have C and B interact, so duplicate those, and then move them up, and then change them to maybe like a pink. Cool. And then we'll change their fill to be a pink. Okay, good. And then we'll just make sure the bottom of those two is alpha matte. Okay, good. What else do we need? We need C and A, so duplicate that. Bring it up so it's still below the lines. What's the next color we might want to give a go? Maybe like a brown. We could use brown. Same thing. Change its fill to be like a brown. Make sure that that track matte of the bottom one of those is alpha matte of that thing. And one more time, it's B and A. Duplicate that. Again, bring it up. Let's see, maybe sandstone. That's a fine color, I think. And that's good because it'll also serve as the color of the circles. And now we'll just change its track matte to be, again, alpha matte, blah, blah, blah. So now we have one problem, that the center piece is not the right color, or it's hard to change it to be a different color, because you would think, obviously, let's just take the sandstone thing, right? Duplicate it, and then, you know, take the C, duplicate that, and we just need to have C and this thing interact with each other. So, you know, I'll just go alpha matte this, and it didn't work. It didn't work. Why didn't that work? Because really, if A is taking its alpha information from B, and that's cutting it down to that kind of a sliver, and then C takes its alpha information from A, then it should then be a smaller sliver, because it's where that sliver interacts with this new circle. But not so fast, smart guy. It's actually looking at the alpha information of A. So what it's doing is, it's looking at the whole circle of A, right? The alpha information hasn't gone away. It's just not displaying it. So basically the information is still there, and that's what C is referencing. So in order to accomplish what we want, we have to precompose. So select these layers, and then Control-Shift-C or Command-Shift-C, and we'll call this center. And it's going to tell us that as soon as we've precomposed, we've broken stuff. And that's okay because we're going to go in and fix it. But what it's basically saying is, now in this layer, when we look at all of the things in here, it's referencing this comp's layer B lines. And there's no layer called that in this comp. So instead of this comp, say comp, and then in brackets, and then in quotes inside those brackets, Venn, because we're looking at the comp called Venn, and then dot layer B lines. So now it's going to look into the comp before, find the layer called B lines, and use those. Now just go through and replace all of the parts where it says this comp something something with the correct phrase, and we should be all good. No more errors. Perfect. And now we are free to have this thing change from normal to stencil alpha, and just make sure that this thing below here is on no track mat, and that you're actually able to observe a fill 4 or whatever it's called for you, and everything should be good. So basically what's happening is this layer here is taking display alpha information from the layer above it, meaning it's only going to be that wedge, and then when it's on stencil alpha, it's like it's drilling down into the things below it, so that anything below it will only show what overlaps with it visually. So that is a terrific way to ensure that only this little sliver comes out. So select all of those, change their fill to kind of like a white. Good, perfect, and that's all good. So now when you look back at your Venn diagram, everything overlaps, everything's new colors, everything's working out, and what's even better is if you start moving around these lines things, then you can see that it changes everything through the stack because of our excellent use of expressions, because we are so smart. So let's move on to the last part, when instead of using colors, we use abstract things. It could be patterns, it could be pictures, it could be video, it could be really anything. It could be dragons and unicorns and leprechauns. It could be pictures of yourself and your mom and your family vacation. It could be, you could have a picture of a mom and then a picture of a dad, and where they overlap there's a baby, and that's really cute. But none of that really matters if you don't know how to do it, so I'm going to shut up and let's get actually into doing that. One of the things you'll have to do is precompose a lot. So select everything and you're going to precompose it. Cool, and it's going to give you error messages for all of them, and so you're going to disregard those error messages, and you're going to label these things correctly and group them correctly. So make sure that all of these things in the CB wedge are grouped together, and you're calling it the CB fill, for example, and then same thing above it, precompose that, and it's the CA fill. Good, and you're fine that it's breaking everything. And then precompose the one above that, and it's the BA fill. Cool, that's good, and you're fine with how it breaks things. Now you're going to grab all of those, open them all up, and you're going to fix them just like we did before. So instead of this comp layer, it's comp, name of that first comp, and then whatever that layer is it's supposed to be looking at. So I want you to go through and do that for all of them, and I will wait until you get back. Okay, you're all done. That's great. Now you're probably going to say to yourself, Evan, why didn't you just write the expression correct the first time? And well, I'm going to tell you right now, you wouldn't have learned why I did it. Most people don't. The thing is that by breaking it and then showing you how to fix it, I'm hoping that it sticks with more people that the reason that you would write a specific layer's name is so that it doesn't break. And then we've all learned something. So let's learn some more things. Grab all of these new comps, open them all up, and what you'll be doing is you'll be taking the layer that's there and you'll be setting it to stencil alpha. You'll see it kind of just disappeared, and that's super great, but doesn't really help me out right now. But we're going to take a white solid, put it below. As you can see, now it's stenciling out a hole that is that white solid. And let's make a new solid and make it like a dark thing. Yeah, that's good. Okay, perfect. Put that below as well, and let's make an interesting pattern. So I like to use Venetian blinds to make my patterns, because not only do they decorate my home nicely, they make swell patterns. Put Venetian blinds on the gray solid, give it something like 25%, cool, and that's good enough for this one. I'm fine with that. So this is a fill, so cool. So copy those things and move on to B fill. Paste them in there, cool. And on B fill, make sure that it is again stencil alpha, and then just change the Venetian blinds slightly. Maybe now they're horizontal. Cool, that's such a change. Maybe set this at like 50% complete, so it's a little bit more different. Cool, moving on to C, neat. Tweak the Venetian blinds to be like 45 degrees. Set it at 75 maybe, and then C fill is going to be moved to stencil alpha again. Good. How's that looking back here? Looking pretty good, It's like these things have punched holes in a weird window, and then you're looking at weird stuff back there. So that's great. And then that kind of moves around because I changed its keyframe stupidly. Just delete that. Doesn't matter. Cool. All right, back to it. So C and B fill. Let's add in a pattern for it. Since I guess two things are overlapping, why don't we duplicate the Venetian blinds? Because these things stack really awesomely, and here's how. And just offset this one to be at 45 degrees, and look at that cool pattern. Or offset it at 90, and look at that cool pattern, or whatever, whatever you put in. But I like that pattern. Now select the bottom of the stack and change it to be stencil alpha. Boom, that's done. Good, you are really good at this. Okay, let's paste those patterns again and do that same thing. Venetian blinds, duplicate that, maybe set 1 to 50, change this around. Maybe this is at 45 and this one is at negative 45, so it makes like diamonds. And then again change that mode to stencil alpha, and you've punched a hole in some stuff. And one more time, making a new pattern, put the stuff below, stencil alpha, some kind of a change to this, don't really know what, kind of just winging it here, do not know what I'm doing. And in the center, same thing, paste some stuff, set that bottom thing here to stencil alpha, and you can see stencil alphas do stack. So stencil alpha is stenciling on another thing that's stenciling, it stencils the stencil, and we are all good. Duplicate that up, and maybe we can create something a little bit more interesting here. Good luck with that. Create something interesting. Super funny, Evan. Okay, and that should be good. We look back at the Venn diagram, and what do we have? We have a whole bunch of patterns oddly interacting with each other, and they don't have to be patterns. They could be pictures, like I said, they could be video, they could be anything. One thing that you might want to change is to make it go from being like windows to make it being like they're moving with the circles. How do you do that? Well, take these things, precompose them, precompose all of them, in fact. Good. Just going to go through and do that while you wait, and this will, basically, it'll stick everything together. I would say move the solid, but that wouldn't do anything because Venetian blinds is not based on really the position of that solid. In fact, most transition things are not. They're based on the frame. So even if you move the solid, nothing's going to change. So we've precomposed those, and now we're just going to parent them to the layer above them that's moving, and we know it's moving because it is taking its movement information from the lines. So just go through, doing a little parenting, doing some good parenting, taking the kid out to softball games, showing up at the recitals. That's good parenting. Okay, back to the Venn diagram, and as you can see, they are moving. Everything is moving and interacting, and it looks really good. So, I'm Evan Abrams. Thank you so much for watching. I hope this has shown you how to make Venn diagrams, how to make them well, and not having to lean on using additive modes to stick them together. In fact, you are now leaning on using a whole lot of alpha channels, and I hope it's taught you a little bit about stencil alpha and what to and to not do with the track mats. If you enjoyed this, comment, rate, subscribe. If you have any questions, ask me in the comments. There's new tutorials on this channel every week. I'm going to say that again. Every week there are new tutorials on this channel, so you should subscribe to it because That's terrific. You'll get a wealth of information and knowledge. If you don't like having knowledge, you can just download some of the templates that I have. Check out evanabrams.com and check out the products and downloads on there. I think you'll enjoy them. I enjoy them because I make them and I'm a big fan of my own work, and hopefully you are too. Like I said, I'm Evan Abrams. If you have any questions, let me know. Hit me up on Twitter at ECAbrams. Check out the Facebook page and subscribe to this channel if you like learning new things in After Effects. Thanks a lot and have a nice day.